This is the video that I spoke about making that I finally made. And I'm going to add a few other things too. Hey, cycling community, this is Steve, Grusis the Cycling Greek. Okay, we're going to talk about a number of things. First, we're going to talk about questions that have come up from my Climb to Kaiser ride. For those of you not familiar with that, that is 155 miles and 16,000 feet of climbing. After, we're going to talk about changes I made to my training and my weight loss that led to my first win in 23 years. After that, we're going to talk about my new bike and why I decided to ride it for the first time at that Climb to Kaiser ride. Okay, let's get started.
We're heading into the town, well, we're heading toward the town of Toll House, where we're going to start the Toll House climb. This is where I officially came off the back, and I'm good with that. Doing my own pace now. I was doing my own pace before, but you know, a little extra enhanced.
As the caption says, I needed to eat, and I just didn't feel comfortable taking my hands off the bars, even the one to coordinate grabbing the Clif Bar, opening it up with my teeth and doing it. It's a new bike. It's very nimble compared to what I had before, and so I had to give up free speed in order to get some calories. And calories, as you'll see with if you saw the video, were very important later on in the ride.
Justin, thank you. Okay.
That was the third rest stop, and I'm bypassing that. What I did was I had this extra water bottle with me. I finished it off, and I'm just dropping it off with that group there. I also carried with me 3 Clif Bars. I want to save time by not stopping at the rest stops and go as far as I can before I hit my first rest stop. So one way to save time on these rides is not to stop at the rest stop if you don't need to stop at the rest stop. So what I did was I carried extra water and extra food. So along with my 2 bottles I had on the bike, I had a small bottle in my back pocket, and I had 3 Clif Bars. Now that, along with my being in better form than last year, at least I believe I was, having a lighter bike, and having 81 degrees for a high temperature in the middle of June, which presented some other problems later on, but that enabled me to go 60 miles before I hit my first rest stop. Not only that, but it started from the day before. I tend to eat low carbohydrates now to help keep my weight down. And yesterday I increased a lot of, had a lot more carbohydrates because it's the day before the big ride. And then in the morning when I got up, I had my regular 30-gram protein smoothie, kale berry smoothie. And then on the way over to the ride, I had a peanut butter sandwich. So I was pretty tanked up. And so again, that enabled me to get as far as I did before I hit my first rest stop.
I'm trying to ride that fine line in terms of cadence. The lower cadence, the lower I get to keep my heart rate. But there's a bit of a cost. I'm hoping at the speed I'm going, that cost on my muscles will not be that great. I guess we'll see.
Typically you want to get the job done with the easiest gear possible, and that certainly holds true for road races and crits. Now in this event, which for me went over 11 hours, having a high heart rate can lead to problems later on, problems where I'm just going to run out of gas. So what I did was I would often use a very easy gear, again the easiest gear possible, especially on climbs, but then I would dial back and go to a slightly harder gear that would keep my momentum. In fact, I would actually increase my speed a little bit, getting my heart rate down. Now when it got steeper, then I'd have to go to that easier gear again. But that seemed to work out well for me. Apparently it worked out very well. Now let's talk about the heart rate range that I used for this event. When I did this same course pretty much, but with 2,000 feet less of climbing, with a little more flats, with a couple of teammates about a week and a half before this event, I kept my heart rate below LT1 on the flats and the rollers, and on the climbs I would go to about 3 beats above. So my LT1 is 117 beats per minute, at least I believe it is. With my max heart rate 163, that would mean that my LT1 was around 72% of that max. On the climbs, I would keep it to 120, no more above that. If it did go above that, I'd dial it back down. On this event, while I had my heart rate range in here, let's say, I actually operated in here. So that 117 for the flats and rollers turned into more of 120. And on the climbing, where the 120 limit on the climbs, that turned into the high 120s and sometimes up as high as 132. I was taking a chance with that. I saw that happening. And apparently this time it worked out.
I'm pretty much at the top of the 1 mile wall here. Now get some descending. So my legs are feeling mostly good, which is a good sign. I've been riding at the top of my parameters and sometimes over. I have to be careful. I want to feel strong enough when I get to Big Creek, and then relatively strong when I get to Kaiser.
Now let's talk about my change in training. I knew this year that since I was going to be going to Masters Nationals in June, which I didn't go, that my build was going to be delayed. Still, those early races played on my psyche. I had some races where I was happy enough and others where I just sucked. Around March, I took another jump in my training, but first I had to determine what I needed. And so what I needed was explosive power and repeatability, sustained efforts, and what I called motor pacing ability. So motor pacing ability, that's being able to hang on to those fast riders on the flats, and I do a lot easier with climbs than I do with the flats, and then being able to not only just hang on, but also to participate. So, but you can only work on a couple things at one time. I chose the explosive power with repeatability and the sustained efforts. For this particular workout, it was my climbing workout. I did it on the 4-lane. It's this 8-mile climb. I climb up to it, warming up, and then I do my workout on that 4-lane. And so the workout in this case were over-unders. I would go 1 minute over at about 120 to 130% of my FTP, which is going to be top end of my VO2 max. And then I would drop down to 3 minutes at the top end of my sweet spot, which is about, 95% of my max. And I wasn't able to do that total workout in the beginning, but eventually I was able to do 3 sets of that. And each set was 4 repetitions. Okay, so now with the other workout, the explosive workout. With my explosive power and repeatability workout, while it can be done on your own, let's say by doing 30-30s, and I have done that, I found it much more productive to do with other people. The key for me, however, is finding the right other people. Locally, we have this Pumpkin Valley Circuit practice race and this World Championship race that we alternate each 1 week after the other week. The problem for me is that I can't hang with these guys. Now I can start off with them, I'll get to one intense effort, and then I'm off the back, and that's it for the workout for me. So what I had to do was find another group that was closer to my abilities, and I found one. The first part of the ride was more of a threshold type of effort, where people would drop off by attrition, and I would usually last 2 or very close to the end. On the way back, it was race play, and that was the important part for me. We would be on the edge, attacking each other, and then trying to recover under stress. I did that repeatedly. I pushed myself in order to maximize my workout. I pushed myself so much that I was often in danger of getting dropped. In fact, I never made it to the very end with everybody. Doing those 2 workouts in March and April put me in a position where I won my first race in 23 years. As you can see, these were not any special workouts. They only worked because this is what I needed and I had such a large training base. I had a few more races since then. Most of them went well. One really sucked, which led to me buying a new bike, which I'll be talking about in a little bit. After that, I did the climb to Kaiser, and I have that video also posted in the description below. What you're seeing now was taken on the Tuesday following Kaiser. So this is where I'm working on my motor pace type of work. And I'm starting to work with the elite riders. Now, I know I'm going to get dropped early, but hopefully I can stay in for more than just getting dropped once and then being off the back for the rest of the ride. The group I was working with, they're starting to go away. That and my form increasing prompted me to jump to the fast guys. My other intense weekly workout is still on the 4-lane. So weight loss. I wanted to get down to acceptable weight for the Winchester Circuit race, and that was happening, I believe, around the middle of April. And so I started with my plan at the beginning of March. Now I had been doing some weight loss stuff from before, but I was kind of like doing this stuff and never really was committed to it. So I was 169 pounds, and within about 3 weeks, I lost 1.5 pounds per week, and I lost a little bit before the circuit race. And so basically I lost 5 pounds. And the way I did that was I ate less and I rode more. Now, that's not the total story, that's the general story. So more specifically, I made sure that I consumed the required amount of protein that I wanted to consume each day. And so for me, that worked out to be 0.8 gram per pound. So that's right around 130 grams that I'm doing now. That involves ample whey protein because I can't eat enough to, throughout the day, timing-wise, to be able to take in 130 grams. So I usually start off with 30 grams in the morning with whey protein smoothie that I do, and often I'll do 30 grams before I go to bed. So that way, I'm usually hitting that 0.8 gram per pound. In terms of fats, I watched the fats, but I wasn't maniacal about it. What I was more maniacal about were the carbohydrates. If it was a low workout day or non-workout day, very few carbohydrates. If I had a big ride or big race coming up the next day, I'd start eating a lot more carbohydrates the day before, and then whatever I do for my recovery and then during the ride and all that the next day. That worked out. I was consistent with that. Currently, I'm 162 pounds. I'd like to lose a little more, basically just to get rid of this last part that happens here. I don't know if it's an old guy thing, but I've always been like that. So in terms of the weight loss, basically that's it. Eat less, ride more, don't skip on the protein, don't be maniacal about the fat, be more maniacal about the carbohydrates. Now we get to talk about the fun stuff, the new bike. New bike, SL8. Old bike, 2005 Colnago Dream HP Plus, aluminum with carbon stays and a carbon fork. The reason I went with the SL8, I was looking at a number of other bikes, but I have a relationship with my bike shop for decades now, and they carry Specialized, and I trust them. Let's talk about the differences between the two bikes. In fact, let me get on the side. In weight alone, this is about 3.5 pounds lighter than what I have. Big difference, obviously, when climbing, and I like doing a lot of climbing. Di2 instead of Campy, and so as you might imagine, I am getting used to developing new neural pathways. Instead of doing this, doing this. Rim brakes on the old bike, and I went all in, and I had some qualms about disc brakes, but in for a penny, in for a pound, got disc brakes. Now, I didn't see much in the beginning between the differences between a disc and rim brakes. When I hit the brakes on the Colnago, the bike stops. When I hit the brakes on this, the bike stops. Now, the main reason I acquiesced to doing the disc brakes is because I can have a wider tire. So now I'm carrying 30s on these, where I train with the 25 on the Colnago and I race with the 24 on the Colnago and I race with the 25. Now, the big difference I saw with the disc brakes was in the ride the other day. We did this 100+ mile ride, and we're now coming back in, and we're descending on a very tight route. This type of thing, here and here and here, and then repeat that about 50 times. It was a long one. I felt like I had more control with the brakes. I could brake later into the turn. It also helped having the 30s there instead of 24s. I felt a lot more comfortable with that too. So I like disc brakes now. Let's see, what else in terms of difference? Power. I have power tap on the Colnago, and I have one wheel left. It has the power taps in the hub. I didn't have one wheel left. I used to have 3, and the other 2 died out, down to 1. On this one, what came stock with it was 4 III. I didn't do that, and so since we're building from the frame up, I'm getting, because it's back ordered now, Wahoo power pedals, double-sided. The final question is, why did I elect to ride this for the first time during the Climb to Kaiser event? Again, 155 miles, 16,000 feet of climbing. When I picked up the bike Friday, and that ride was on Saturday, we did the retool thing, RETUL, the computer program with sensors that they stick on you to give you a proper bike fit. We compared this bike to the other bike and then started dialing in this bike, and we got it almost perfectly. I think there was one parameter that was off by 1 degree. So because of that, and because the configuration of what I was going to ride with the SL8 was 4.5 pounds lighter than what I would have done with the Colnago, and that's mainly because of the seat bag. I was still using 2 full tires, so I carry an extra tire in the back, so my seat bag alone with the tire in it is 1 pound. But yeah, about 4.5 pounds. Because of that, I decided, okay, I'm going to ride the SL8. If it would have turned out bad, then what would happen is that I'd have a lot of muscle and tendon problems. Nothing like that of the sort. Nothing with the patella, nothing with the hamstrings or the glutes. There wasn't any imbalances. I had a good ride, and it's as if I had ridden my old bike, except a lot lighter and more aero. Okay, that's all I can think of right now. Oh yeah, there's one more thing. So you'll notice, let me bring this up here. I have cameras on this bike, and you'll notice I have the rear camera, or that's where the rear camera goes. And I also have this. This is for a Garmin Verb. They don't make those anymore. And the reason I like this is because it's still running, but the battery lasts about 2 hours, 20 minutes, which is great for most races. Unfortunately, it fits around here, and this is more bladed, so it's not going to fit there. So what I'm thinking about doing, I got to experiment with this before my next race, is take a little styrofoam, stick it under here with the camera, painter's tape or some sort of tape. Yeah, it's going to look hokey, and then we'll use that. Hopefully it's not too hokey. Okay, and if you have any other ideas other than buy a new camera, because I just bought to buy a new bike and the Fetching Mr. Cycling Greek is acquiesced to it, but that's not her favorite thing, let me know. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of it. As always, remember, comment, like, subscribe. The Cycling Greek.